Hi there everyone. So today I'm going to be showing you getting into and signing into your Universal Credit Journal. This is what you'll hopefully be doing once you finish the application process, which either yourself or your advisor would have taken you through. So how you log on to Universal Credit is that you would go in through Google and you would obviously be looking for the .gov website. So we'll just go on to there at the moment. There we are. Setting cookies. And you can search for Universal Credit. And it should pop up, usually as the first top bit, sign into your Universal Credit. And I'll just get this one here. Sign in there. Okay. So what I'll be looking for first is you should have created your username and also a password. If you would like your advisor to help you, generally speaking, with your journal, then your advisor would need to know your username and your password, and also there would be a security question. Now, it's important to be clear with your advisor about whether or not they want to store this information for you, whether or not the policies of their office can do so, okay? A lot of advisors tend not to store these types of passwords for security reasons, so it's best to be sure that your advisor is willing to do that in order to get into your journal. If not, you would have to arrange various appointments with your advisor and tell them the password every time so that they could get into your journal and see what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to look at a live journal at the moment, so I'll just type in my own. And obviously at the bottom, if it's Internet Explorer, we say not for this site. Now, obviously be aware of if you're using a library or any other public computer to sign in, because those are obviously used by a number of people. So try not to leave your own passwords or personal information stored on public access machines. If you are having difficulty going to your public library or any other sort of public machine, check with your local librarian on how to properly get rid of your personal information stored within those machines. Okay. Now we put in our security, and this brings us to our journal. Okay. Now I'm sure you're wondering what it is a working person like myself is doing with a journal. Well, as I said in the previous video, Universal Credit is for whether or not you're in or out of work. And it just so happens that in the spring of 2020, I was finding myself in need of additional employment. And so I signed on to Universal Credit to help me through with what I expected might be a long wait for finding work. As it turns out, I was happily employed, so it was not a very long wait, but my journal continued to remain active while I'm in employment. And this is what you'll see today. So in your journal, so the first thing that you'll see is anything you've got in your to-do list coming up. Now, this one is left over from myself from April when I applied appointment to provide evidence of capital. Now, obviously, with the coronavirus coming into effect, no appointments could be had face-to-face to look at capital. If you are a person like myself that has savings or capital that you need to declare, they would have wanted you to attend an appointment at the job centre to show your bank statements and other evidence of your assets. So just bear in mind that. At the moment, obviously, there are no face-to-face, generally speaking, so this would be a conversation that takes place over the phone, and there would be a phone appointment arranged with you to confirm all of that. So this is the to-do list. If you're starting out in your application, you'll see a very, very broad to-do list that will remind you of certain sections that you need to complete. Universal Credit does not have to be completed all in one sitting because you may not have all that information, but it's probably a good idea to complete all of the sections as soon as you can in relatively quick succession. Otherwise, what may happen is that it may delay your first payment because Universal Credit will be unable to verify the information that you've put in. Okay, so the to-do list for me is relatively short. The home page, which which you'll see. So it gives you details of what's in your homepage. So it tells you when your next payment is going to be, if you're going to get a payment. There's a section for reporting change of circumstances. There's a section for advances. Now this is where you note your advanced loans. So if you look at that, and it says if you have an advance, you'll pay it back a bit at a time. If you stop getting universal credit, you'll have to pay your advance back another way. So this details where your advances are and what's due. So we'll just go back a little bit from this page. We'll go back to the home page again. Reporting changes. So obviously these are the sections where you can report certain changes in your circumstances. So work and earnings, health, living with a partner, caring for someone, a bank account details, children that live with you, personal details, and where you live and what it costs. And of course, there's also a section here for my changes not listed. If you're having particular issues with universal credit and it's not listed on the journal, you may need to basically call them on Universal Credit Helpline. It is a free phone number, however, the waiting times can be quite long, generally from about 30 minutes to 1 hour, depending on how busy their lines are. So let's return to the home page again. So we've done advances, we've done our to-do list, section to add a note. So this is the journal here. This is the main point of the journal. If I scroll right the way down to the bottom, you can see all the things that took place. So I made my application obviously in March, and it wanted my details, my address, whether or not I have a partner, nationality, a whole broad range of things were required on that day to complete my application. Okay. Now once your application goes off, you then get a response from an agent. So I had an appointment to attend on the 13th of March, which I attended, and I got a security number and all that. Now obviously you end up then with an agent or a work coach who can write to you inside your journal. And obviously this is a lady from the service centre at Dundee telling me to give her a phone to book an evidence appointment for my capital to be verified. So that's all standard, but obviously I would need to prepare my accounts, my capital and all the rest of it so that they can be verified at that appointment. And so the journal is the main record of what goes on for Universal Credit. So as well as being an important way to get in touch with your work coach, you should obviously take care when writing in the journal because it's not very easy to undo messages that are sent there, and DWP do tend to treat this as the complete record of what your application is. So it's also very important for you to take your own copies, generally paper copies I would say, of any changes to your journal just in case there are any issues and you get locked out of that system. So what I would tend to do, now this is Microsoft Internet Explorer, so let's see if we've got it here. You would go to the print and then you would go to the print settings. If you went through Google, for example, you would have an option to print. Now what you would need to do is you'd need to print PDF. And what that would allow you to do would be to allow you to save a screenshot of what was on the screen, which you'd be able to have as a PDF for your own record. So you would have not only your internet record, but you would have a PDF for your own records. And that's usually very helpful in case changes are made and you need to refer back to another point in time where it said something different. Okay, so that is the journal. And as I said to you previously, looking at the journal every 3 days or so until your application is complete generally is the most helpful thing to do. Now the next part is my commitments. We did mention this in the other videos, so here you see my commitments for my application, and my commitments are essentially I'll sign into my account often to complete all activities, and I'll report changes promptly, including changes to work. So those are my commitments there. Obviously, as you see, my activities and my to-do list are all completed, and I do report any changes, including changes to my work, but there haven't been any changes to my work, so I don't have anything to report at this point. Now, these are for me and I'm already in work. If you're out of work, there could be the possibility that you need to make yourself available for work or training to undertake work. If you're working part-time or self-employed, there may be a commitment that you find additional work. Now, obviously, this is agreed with your work coach during the initial interview. Work coaches do take into account the nature of the economic environment. So I think there are a lot of work coaches that are willing to accept at the moment that work will be very hard to come by, and they are likely to take a lenient attitude to individuals who cannot quite meet their work commitments, or they may edit the work commitments at this time. But obviously keep in close touch with your work coach, especially if there are changes, so that you know what is expected of you while you have your journal. Now, the sanctions. So this is a section that deals with the sanctions, and it says obviously your payment can be reduced if you don't keep a commitment. This is a sanction. The amount depends on what you failed to do and how often you've been sanctioned in the past year. So if you don't keep a commitment, you must tell your work coach straight away. You'll need to explain why. If we decide that you had a good reason, your payment won't be reduced. Do what you can to stay in work. If you leave your job or lose pay by choice or due to misconduct, your payment can be reduced for up to 6 months. Report changes to your work. So if a job ends and you don't report it within 5 days, your payment will be reduced until the day before you report it. Once you've done this, your payment will be reduced for an additional 7, 14, or 28 days. And then lastly, report changes to your work. So when you start a job or earn more, don't forget to report that too. So generally, there is an obligation to continuously update them whenever there is something to update. Okay. So go back to nearly through the whole menu now. So this is the area where you see your payments. So obviously this is the most important section of the journal for quite a few people, because it tells you how much you're going to get paid and when you're going to get paid. So it will tell you, as you see at the top of the screen, your next statement will be ready on such and such. So for me, it's the 10th of November. And then it says on the 14th of November, you will be paid money you are entitled to. So what these dates are will be different for everybody, and it very much depends on when you made your application and what the period of the calculation is for your payment. Now, the pay statements are outside of the scope of this video for the moment, but it is important to know where you find them and to check them whenever they come in to see if they're accurate or what you expected. And if you're having difficulty with them, then of course take your pay statement to an advisor who'll be able to look at it and see what might have gone on. Okay. So as you can see here, because I'm at work, I'm expected not to have anything because my earnings have cancelled out my universal credit entitlements. There is one amount that was paid to me, which was very nice of the DWP, but I suspect that may be an overpayment. I will have to obviously correct that and may potentially need to pay back that money. The next one obviously was the same as before, so there's no money paid out to me at that point. So always whenever you get a pay statement come in, it is good to check to see that things are as they should be and to investigate why that payment may have occurred. You don't want to find yourself with additional money that you can spend and then spend it and then find out you have to pay it back. That's a horrible situation to be in and definitely something to be avoided. The last part is job applications. So this is how Universal Credit track your activity for jobs. So obviously you can see at the time I was looking for work, I made an application, which unfortunately I got no response from, but that is the way of the jobs market. But anything that you look for, any job seeking activity you do, just update your journal, and that way your work coach knows that you are committed to looking for work and that you're making efforts and that they can see what it is you're doing. Obviously, if you have no requirement to look for work, then you have no need to look at the job application section, but that's why we are clear with our work coaches what it is that we're trying to do. And the final part is how to manage universal credit claims. Information section is down here, and there's a whole bunch of information with additional support on furlough, on advances, on scams and fraud, on contacting Universal Credit. So there's a lot of additional information in there, which is well worth the read. It may not be the most exciting things that you've ever read, but it's certainly the most helpful in terms of managing your money and your household budget. So that's everything from the journal for the moment for this video. Try and not stress out too much about an application or maintaining your journal, and of course, stay safe.